Happy Sabbath. We are going to hopefully have an open discussion with membership participation for those on the West Coast, and some of you on the East Coast joined us on Wednesday and even last night. So what we were attempting to go through is some of the things brought in by Elder Terry studies. And I, for one, am very thankful of Elder Parmenter's leading in bringing us to examine the different views that are being brought and helping us to reason together. And I know for my own self, with the goal of victory on this journey, that the light would dispel any, I don't want to call it darkness, but any mistakes we make along the way. I know for my own self, um, I've definitely made plenty. And, but I thank God for their mercy with us as we continue on this journey together, that all the darkness, all the error, all the mistakes, all would be dispelled by the light. Um, and we would be filled with this light and understanding. So I do want to have it be as I said, participation from everybody. That would be great, whether it be chat or shout out or hand in the chat, something, however you want to do it, so that we can all participate in working through this. So we started with, I don't remember if we started with the Sixth Kingdom topic or the Mark of the Beast. We might have started with the Mark of the Beast topic, but let's look at Daniel 2. We'll start there with the Daniel 2, 8, 9, and then also 11 continues in through that discussion. But Daniel 2 starts with the statue. And this has actually been really helpful to me. I have been studying with somebody that is no Adventist background and had to go back my own self in my own personal studies to review Daniel, that I can help this other person with just the big picture of the kingdoms of Bible prophecy, which for anybody else that does that, or in our studies, we always wind up being prompted with thoughts and remembering things that we forgot so many times. So I know we touched on this Wednesday night, so we're going to go through it just briefly again. Daniel 2 gives us how many kingdoms? And you can shout it out or put it in the chat.
Four.
Say that again.
Four.
Four kingdoms, and they are
Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome.
Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, and Rome. Thank you. And I'm going to do just a real quick share screen. Let me find the right one before I go there. Okay. And if somebody would like to read, we've got just this first paragraph first. This is out of a document. We talked about it on Wednesday night as well, that actually Elder Parmenter brought us to a few years ago. I don't remember exactly when, but a few years ago. It's the appeal. I don't know if I'm going to remember the whole title. Maybe somebody can remember to the evangelicals, I think, or something like that. But it was an appeal and into the churches, something into the churches. So hopefully somebody remembers that. But the reference is here, if you want to go find it. And if you go into the Ellen White app, you just go to Josiah Litch, the Pioneers, Josiah Litch, and you'll find this. And this is from the chapter on the time of the end. So if somebody would like to read the first quote, this is talking about Rome. So we have Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. If somebody wants to read this first paragraph.
I'll read it.
Sure. Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome. Okay, Rome. Next, we are taken back to the union first formed between the people of God, the Jews, and the Romans. The last of the four great earthly kingdoms which should exist and which is to continue to exist until the end. 1841. That is JOL.
Yeah, Josiah Litch.
Josiah Lynch. IPR EC 91.1.
Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome.
So the fourth kingdom, we know that we know it's Rome, but when you actually look into Daniel 2, 8 and 9, 2, 7, 8 is what I was meant to say. Do you ever see Rome named?
Are you for in the Bible?
Yes.
Not by name as in Rome. No, I don't think so. Do we?
No.
No.
It describes as you continue through as you describe, as you go through, continue through 7 and 8. I have a cat on the back of my leg trying to tear me apart. Sorry. You go through 7 and 8, and it's described in different ways. We understand that. This great beast, and it would continue to the end, all of that. So we know historically that is Rome. And from Josiah Litch, he is saying that that power, Roman power, that fourth kingdom, would continue until the end. Okay, so if somebody wants to read this next quote.
He shall scatter among
Sorry, before
them.
you read the next quote, what is the purpose of this one? Next, we are taken back to the
Yeah.
union first formed.
Hang on one second. We're Olivine, were you talking to us or someone?
I'm asking, why did you pull this quote up? Are you tying it to something?
Why did I pull this quote up?
Mhm.
We're just going to do a rough overview of the four kingdoms and how they break down. That's all.
Oh, I was just interested to see why you started at the year 161.
Yeah. Just to show that that fourth kingdom is going to go till the very end, and we're going to look at the breakdown of that very end. Okay, so I think somebody was ready to read. Is that right?
Yeah, he shall scatter among them the prey. Rome is said to have done more toward the conquest of the world by her policy and craftiness than by her arms. Scattering the prey and spoil among those they conquered was one of her favorite modes of conciliating the feelings of her most inveterate foes. But when this means failed to win over their enemies to the Roman interest, the sword decided the conquest.
Thank you. Thank you, Lana. So these four kingdoms that we see in Daniel 2, when you continue through, you see chapter 7 and 8, that how Rome is more described and broadening that picture and just understanding that Rome would continue to the end, then what does that mean to us? Who wants to break down what Rome is? Big picture. We're not going to go into details. We're just going to look at a big picture. King in the north? Sort of. Let's keep going a little bit more.
The three stages or phases:
Yes. And what are they?
pagan, papal, modern.
Pagan, papal, and modern. And those were things that I was kind of coming about that I think we all knew, but bringing to my remembrance in the last month or so, coming to this place. But then Elder Terry takes it, adding to that Acts 27. And what do we see when it comes to these three stages in Acts 27? What does Acts 27 give us?
You mean the institutions?
Correct. And what are they?
Of the US and Adventism.
And Adventism. Okay, thank you. So you have the two institutions, the United States and Adventism. Because my question when I watched her, I've watched him a few times because I tend to always have to be doing other things at the same time so my time to actually sit and watch a study and take notes can be limited, especially when there are so many presentations to watch. So I picked up on a few things, and that's what we started talking about Wednesday night. That is the sixth kingdom, the king of the north, and who wants to share their thoughts on the king of the north as the sixth kingdom?
Lamb-like beast?
Lamb-like beast? Anybody else?
I think that Elder Terry in her last presentation said that the sixth kingdom is not the king of the north, but it's the unilateral power that's trying to rise. So the Sunday law movement actually starts in the seventh kingdom, but no, not the sixth kingdom.
Correct. So you would have, I left out a point here. When you start then going to Revelation 13 and Revelation 17, Revelation 13 gives you two beasts. And we know them. We've always understood that to be the papacy and the United States. When you go to Revelation 17, how many heads do you see?
Seven?
7 heads?
Yes. So we're going to Revelation 13, you have two beasts. And Revelation 17, you have 7 heads. What's a head?
Kingdom?
A kingdom?
Or king.
Yes, the king of the kingdom. In Revelation 17, you have 7 heads, king of the kingdom. So what we have over the years come to see when it comes to the 7 heads, while you only have these 4 kingdoms, this one is Rome comes in 3 parts: pagan, papal, and modern. So you would have your head of Babylon or kingdom, Medo-Persia, Greece. Then you would have pagan Rome, papal Rome, and modern Rome, bringing us to the end of time. You're going to have the 6th kingdom being, how did you describe it, Gloria? Could you say that again?
It's the unilateral part of, it's 2 powers trying to rise within the sixth kingdom, but no, it's not king of the north yet until the 7th kingdom when the Sunday law movement starts.
Okay.
Well, I
So-
have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, so I know Elder Terry is going to expound on that in her future studies. So if seventh kingdom or the king of the north did not come until seventh kingdom, then on our line 1989, Daniel 11:40, would that be beginning of the king of the north then?
In 1989?
1989.
If we all watch her studies to continue through that process, I believe she said you can see that at 1989. You can see it because you see the work of George Bush wanting to be unilateral,
Right, okay.
right? So you have George Bush wanting to make it unilateral, trying to figure out which direction I want to go here. Lana's study was really great, going through the executive orders that she was able to get through. Thank you for that. I was also looking at early this morning things on the UN, and one that I had not gotten to yet, and I don't have the number. Maybe somebody can look it up. But it was an executive order on February 5th, and I was reading a few different articles on it, and going back a little bit, I took a few notes to put down here that in 2018, this is the UN Human Rights Commission. And in 2018, Trump withdrew from that. So you can be an observer or a member, and your membership is for 3 years, then you can renew it or be elected. Somebody else is probably better on that than I am. But in 2018, he withdraws from that. In February of 2021, the UN or the United States under Biden becomes an observer again in that. And in January 2022, the USA is now a full member again. That full membership would last for 3 years. And at the end of that 3 years, which would be January 2025, you would have to be reelected or renew that membership. You would be an observer if you stayed there. But on February 5th, Trump does an executive order to end all funding. And I have a few things that I didn't have time to put together to to be able to share screen with you, but I want to just read real quick a couple of comments that were made, if I find the right one. So this is on the White House government page. Withdrawing the United States from ending funding to certain United Nations organizations and reviewing United States support to all international organizations. So the focus in this one, and I can put the link in the chat later, for the United States was to come out of and stop funding for the Human Rights Council, for UNESCO, which is education, scientific, and cultural organization, and then also the Relief and Works Agency for Palestine, UNRWA. And the claims are that they have been infiltrated. UNRWA reportedly been infiltrated by members of groups long designated by the Secretary of State as foreign terrorist organizations, and the UNRWA employees were involved in the October 7th, 2023 Hamas attack on Israel. The UN Human Rights Council has protected human rights abusers by allowing them to use organizations to shield themselves from scrutiny, while UNESCO has demonstrated failure to reform itself, has continually demonstrated anti-Israel sentiment over the past decade, and has failed to address concerns over mounting errors. So there's more that you can read into that. But there was another website that I also was reading some of this. When it comes to the United States and their as a superpower, as a global superpower, as this what to be the strongest nation and should have been the protector and the defender, right, of people and of rights. So American leadership in human rights advocacy, I'll just give you the title. It's a Justice for All statement, Justice for All website. You can find them in on this. So American leadership in human rights advocacy is not just a moral obligation, it's a strategic imperative. If the U.S. cedes its influence, countries with troubling human rights records will fill the void, reshaping international norms in ways that run counter to American interests. Remaining engaged in multilateral institutions like the Human Rights Council allows the United States to promote its values, strengthen alliances, and protect religious freedoms on a global scale. And we can see that as not what we even, this nation with the executive orders we're seeing is even representing this day. We call the U.S. government to reassert its leadership in the Human Rights Council and stand firm defending the rights of all people to live, worship, and speak freely. And the fight for human rights is one that America cannot afford to abandon. So that's just adding to some of what, and I don't, if Lana got to that one, I apologize if it's repeated. I don't think she did, but she might have, and I might have missed it. So as Gloria said, into the seventh kingdom, which is the king of the north, and we see the sixth kingdom as being this protector and defender of the people, as we see from the ship of Alexandria. So the United States has actually changed, gone from that lamb-like beast to the seventh kingdom and the king of the north and anti-human rights. So the other thing that I found in here in a couple of the articles that I was reading is that this, like I said, it's a 3-year term and then you're reelected, or I think it was an election process, but it expired in January 1 of 2025. So while he did the executive order, it would almost seem he didn't have to do that. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that, but it would seem that he did not have to do that because it had expired as of January 1, 2025. So he would have had to do whatever to get us back in there, either as an observer, and then however the votes come about, maybe somebody else knows that better. Is there any comments on that? On the significance of the United States not being a part of the Human Rights Council and UNESCO?
So
Just,
you
just
said
that
they,
they're, go ahead.
sorry. Okay, thanks. Just clarity. So the executive order was mostly about funding of the HRC?
Yes, yes, to stop funding different organizations, and those 3 were specified.
Okay.
Those 3 were specified. They were withdrawing the funding from. So the United States helped found the United Nations after World War II to prevent future global conflicts and promote international peace and security. But some of the UN's agencies, this is actually from the order, okay? And if you want, unless somebody's already posted it in there, I can post it in there. Because this is actually from as Lana was reading from the orders. Go ahead, Lana. You got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so do you remember when in Trump's first presidency, the child separation policy, right? They, if I remember correctly, they wanted to investigate for crimes against humanity. And that's when I think where he had you know, confrontation with them, where not to say really confrontation, but where they got in the way. And that's you know, so so it's basically like it's an organization on his way to accomplish his agenda, which is inhumane.
Yes. And Troy said, couldn't Biden have renewed it? Biden actually did. First, in February 2021, the United States began to engage again as an observer. And then January 2022, the United States was a full member. But that only lasts for 3 years. So it actually expired January 2025. So Trump, and I'll read from this, but some of the UN's agencies and bodies have drifted from this mission to prevent future global conflicts and promote international peace. He says, but some of the UN agencies and bodies have drifted from this mission and instead act contrary to the interest of the United States while attacking our allies and propagating anti-Semitism. So what's he accusing the UN of doing?
Attacking Israel?
Attacking what?
Israel?
Israel, yes. As in 2018, when the United States withdrew from the UN Human Rights Council, the United States will reevaluate our commitments to these institutions. There's 3 UN organizations that deserve renewed scrutiny, and they are the House, UNHRC, the Human Rights Council, and then the UNESCO, which is the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East. So UNRWA was reportedly had been infiltrated by members of groups long designated by the Secretary of State as foreign terrorist organizations. And I think we read this part and had to do, they then go on to say that they participated in the attack on Israel with Hamas. So then the UN, HRC, and UNESCO participation. This is under Section 2. The United States will not participate in the UN HRC and will not seek election to that body. The Secretary shall terminate the office of United States Representative to the UN HRC and any positions primarily dedicated to supporting the United States representing the Human Rights Council.
Elaine?
Yes, go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, I must have missed it, but what are you where are you reading that from?
This is, somebody else can look up I'm sorry, I don't have the executive order number, but it's the executive order that he signed on February 5th.
Okay.
The UN. I
Okay.
know somebody posted a link in there, so I don't know if that's what it was. So this is part B of section 1. The United States will also conduct a review of membership in UNESCO. This review should be led by the Secretary in coordination with the United States representative to the United Nations and must be completed within 90 days of the date of this order. This review will include an evaluation of how and if UNESCO supports United States interests. In particular, the review will include an analysis of anti-Semitism or anti-Israel sentiment within the organization. And it goes on to the funding section 3. Executive department and agencies shall not use any funds for a contribution, grant, or other payment to UNRWA. And it goes on to the details of that section and all that. The Secretary shall withdraw the determination previously made under, and it goes through the classifications on that. And we're going to go accordingly to the funds appropriated for a contribution to UN regular budget under the heading Contributions to International Organizations. The Secretary shall withhold the United States proportionate share of the total annual amount of UN regular budget funding for the UN HRC. And then within 180 days, is part B of section 3, within 180 days of the date of this order, the Secretary, in consultation with UN ambassador, shall conduct a review of all international intergovernmental organizations of which the United States is a member and provides any type of funding or other support, and all conventions and treaties to which the United States is a party, to determine which organizations, conventions, and treaties are contrary to the interests of the United States, and whether such organizations, conventions, or treaties can be reformed. Upon the conclusions of that review, the Secretary shall report the findings to the President through the Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs and provide recommendations as to whether the United States should withdraw from any such organizations, conventions, or treaties. So it goes on. So just add to what Lana did when we're looking at the work of this seventh kingdom, and especially when it comes to, everything she was reading, and then going to the UN, we understand the UN, if I'm still following this all correctly, the UN is, when it comes to the world, it's the global globalization view and work to be done, but with a major superpower such as the United States not helping it and basically saying there are terrorists involved, infiltrated by terrorists, etc. So we can see where that's actually heading, and what I thought was interesting as I was reading it is when we look at the history here, you've got 2021, and we know this period to be what? Well, we Panium and all that, but what do we call this?
Agitation.
Say that again. Agitation. Yes, thank you. So you see it as an agitation that was pointing to the Sunday Law. So what is this actually? In a lot of his executive orders, based on what Terry's teaching, if you follow what I'm saying.
Stirring up the realm of Grisha.
Yeah. So he's going to be in agitation here, that executive order and many others that she read. So there we know that there's an agitation in here for the world. So we know this to be the national Sunday Law and this to be the worldwide Sunday Law. Any comments so far as we went through that? Okay. So this is pretty straightforward. I think we all understand it fairly well. The thing that I think I know I want to explore more, because I am not as well versed as could be in Daniel, But in understanding that second quote that we read, how Rome works in craftiness, and then, if necessary, then by the sword. So as we see pagan, papal, and modern, we see the modern is broken down into the sixth and the seventh kingdom. So let's go back over here and let's look at the mark of the beast. We talked about that on Wednesday, and what if somebody wants to give their understanding of this history and as it pertains to the mark of the beast. Help me fill in some marks here. What do we have? What's the repeating pattern that we see first? We'll start with the repeating pattern.
You mean Boston
Elaine,
Concord?
could I?
Yes, go ahead. Question.
I'm sorry, Phil. I wasn't quick enough on my muting and unmuting.
Can't say I have an
Elaine,
answer
if we
for you
could.
either. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll present the question to all of us.
Okay.
I'm still trying to get a good view of the sixth and seventh kingdom. Would we now say, because Acts 27 shows us that the United States institution, along with SDA, but I'm looking at USA, failed its mission to protect and defend, but it still exists. Would we, because there's the two parallel sixth and seventh kingdoms, because there's an underlying, the counterfeit of the true, which now the true movement, us, is going forward. Would the old sixth kingdom be considered like a lame duck? I mean, it's still there. Or is that just not even a?
I'll leave that to others.
And then the seventh kingdom prophetically has risen, or am I just taking it from a wrong view? I don't know.
It's form profession and form and spirit.
I can't understand.
Where Elates spoke about it as, I think, form and spirit, or profession and another word. It is thereby. Yes.
It's hard to understand you. It's kind of coming in choppy a little bit. Is there a way that you can adjust your sound so that we can hear you clearly?
I don't know how to. I don't know what is causing it, so I don't know how to.
Sound actually better now for me, anyway.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was saying form and spirit, practice and profession. By profession, the sixth head is there. By appearances, but by profession,
okay,
it is not. So it is the lamb-like beast, but when it speaks like a dragon. That's the seventh. So the sixth, it's the form. It has this lamb-like appearance, like a democracy, all of those things. But through its laws and policies, the seventh expresses itself. So it's a shell that is there.
Oh, thank you, Olivine. I get it now. Thank you.
Is that how we would look at it, or would we put it lamb and dragon and go from there?
We could do both. And I think if you did both, then you would see things. It would show you different
Susan made a good, Susie Q, I think that's the right one. She made a good point that it's a shell. It still exists, but it's empty. So I think there's a lot of we could describe it different ways for the same thing.
So
if I can make a comment. So if I could make a comment on Kathy's question.
Sure.
Revelation 13:1, when the beast rises out of the sea, we have the fifth kingdom, which is Rome.
Yes.
It rises from all the revolutions and wars in Europe. And then when we go to, I think, verse 11, is it? When the beast rises out of the land, right? The second beast.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have, it's a lamb-like, so that would be the sixth kingdom. And when he speaks like a dragon, that would be the seventh kingdom. So we have sort of like a progression there.
1310?
Yeah, 1310 is it? Yeah.
But that sixth kingdom still exists. It's not like it's gone.
So it's end of the sixth kingdom and rise of the seventh kingdom. So I think it
Right,
is
but-
gone. Yeah.
I mean,
We're-
prophetically, but literally, it's still moving on.
Yes, because we have the, like
Okay.
Oliver said, profession versus
Yes.
practice. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
So you're going to
So
have
would it be safe? Sorry, Elaine.
Go ahead.
Would it be safe? Would it be safe to say then it's the sixth kingdom? Because I'm trying to understand like everybody else. So that means I'm looking at democracy. So we still have election, so-called fair election. So this would be a characteristic of the sixth kingdom. Am I right? I'm trying to understand too.
Me too.
Could you
Listening
repeat
to
that,
the comments, Russia comes to mind. The death of the king of the south. Does Russia still exist? I don't know if
Yes.
that would be
Yeah.
helpful, but I found it helpful as you were all talking because Russia still exists, even though you see the death of the king of the south. Russia still exists and goes on and participates.
Also, to add, also elections in Russia exist all these years, believe it or not. But it's useless, right? So,
Yeah.
So,
So-
like Kathy said, yeah, sixth kingdom is not, it's not dead. It's still there. Like democracy never dies. And I remember Elder Tess, in Speaking of Nation, part 1 and 2, talks about the profession and practice. And yeah, she says that democracy will not die. It's still intact there. Yeah.
So you
Also,
would you put
Rome.
profession and practice on both sides?
Yes. Profession and then practice under the dragon.
That would be the same as the SDA church, right? So the SDA
Yeah.
church is still going to be there, but not as God's kingdom, right?
In
Great
form,
point,
yes.
Christine. I think that's right.
But if we
So
look
we
at
take the place
Rome,
of SDA church, right?
yes, we do. And if we look at
Right.
Rome, we say pagan Rome, papal Rome, but it is still Rome. So the United States is still the United States, 6 United States. Papal Rome, pagan Rome, modern Rome, it's all Rome.
I think we
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
My questions are being answered.
has been. Is that what you said?
Yes, they are being answered indirectly. Thank you. Because a lot of things are going through my mind.
Me too. Me too. And my key questions that I had was, how do you say that the sixth kingdom is not the king of the north? That one was one I was really struggling with because the statue is always the king of the north, and so I was really struggling with that too. I can't say that I fully grasp it, and I'm working through it myself. Fel, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if you listen to so like the form of democracy, right? I would say it still exists because the government is still somewhat, operating under that so-called democracy. But if you listen, so when Elder Tess said it's just a shell. It's there's no life in it. It's like a turtle, right? It's just a shell. If there's no body in it, it's dead. There's no life. So if we as a movement know certain things that the world does not know, that the government of the United States does not know. So if you listen to Hakeem Jeffries, who is the leader of the minority, basically he threw up his hands. I don't know if you listened to when he spoke. I don't know what that is called. It's not it's not the nation, speech to the nation like the president. But he said basically his emphasis, and he looked at his facial expression, and he said, "What leverage do we have?" And he repeated that several times, and you can see the dejection on his face because basically everyone, all the three branches are ruled by the Republicans, and the Democrats realize that they have no power. So basically, he was saying, what leverage do we have? And then you can listen to AOC, and she's giving all the, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this, and we can do that. And that's the other part of the democracy trying to be alive. But like Jeffrey says, they really, at this point, they have no power. They have no leverage. There's nothing that they can do.
And I was thinking as you're speaking about that, because this is where it speaks like a dragon. So this one is speaking, and this one is silenced. What silenced? I got to ask a question because I don't know if I missed something in here. Did Olivine, did you have your hand up or try to speak and I missed it?
No.
Okay. Did you have something that you want to say or no?
No, I was just listening and agreeing.
Okay. I just saw a comment in there that referred back to you and I wasn't sure, so I want to make sure.
Oh, it's Troy had asked me to repeat what I had said.
Okay.
It was covered where somebody else had shared form and spirit, form and practice.
Troy's covered with
I have a thought too, Elaine.
Sure.
I think you were talking there with Phil, though. Was Phil finished?
I think so. Phil, you're finished?
Yes. Yes, I'm finished. Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you. I've really been involved with Democrats, and I'm getting a lot of stuff, a lot of information now on some of their plans. And they think that they can impeach Trump. So there must be something that's still alive there that they can work with their power. I mean, we said they're powerless, really, but how in the world can they be talking about impeachment? I mean, I want to be able to see these things in the right light because I'm getting a lot of information from Democrats, from liberals. And they're absolutely frustrated right now with what's happened as they see this unfolding, and they see democracy waning in many, many respects. It's not completely gone, but they're looking to see what they can do to get rid of this problem.
History of success, there's nothing that they can do. They failed.
I know it.
2016, they failed. To 2020 to 24, the Democrats have failed. It is like when Ellen White is talking about the Civil War in 1861. She spoke about those of the South, their evil doing, but then where her greatest rebuke was toward the North. She said that there were selfish persons there who would work against each other, and she said that it was God's means of punishing them. So it is the same thing. The Democrats, their motives, I think Elder Parminda had done a series where he was showing, and he was saying the Supreme Court had made the correct decision because the way the Democrats had gone about doing what they were supposed to do was just weak and selfish in many ways and faulty. Likewise, Elder Tessie's, I think one of her last presentation, she was speaking about that as well, where she says, there is nothing that Donald Trump does that should surprise us. But then she turned the blame on the Democrats and she said they have failed miserably. So the prophetic line, the prophetic narrative is our guide, and it tells us that there is nothing that the Democrats will be able to do to come back from this place that we have found ourselves. They're dead. They're only there by form.
Thank you. Kathy,
Yes, thank you for that.
were you done, Jackie, as well?
Yes, I appreciate her comments on that.
I just want Kathy to read her comment if you would do that, Kathy, about Elder Terry.
Oh, okay. I was responding to Donna's question.
Okay.
Let me find it. I think basically, oh, there it is. So wait a minute. So from what I remember, Elder Terry was sharing that since the since the SDA failed, that the movement is the true spiritual movement that will keep alive the memory of equality. And then in contrast, the seventh kingdom carries on as a counterfeit, keeping the memory of dominion alive. And I'm just trying to keep those multiple things in my mind, right? Instead of what's it called? Compartmentalize.
Cluttered, yeah. And poorly organized.
Yeah. So that's how I understand it. So I don't know if that helped or not.
If anybody remembers,
thank you, Kathy. That was good. I knew what it meant spiritually. I kind of wanted to know if it meant anything externally, with our movement, and what does it mean? I mean, do we take part in anywhere like externally, or is it just spiritual?
That I don't know.
Okay. That kind of was my picture. That was
okay.
Kind of, thank you. Thank you. That was very clear what you wrote. I understood that.
If you think about it contextually, right? Our boys, it's the history of success. Christ and his disciples were 13, but on Pentecost, you had over 120 persons in the upper room. They represented the kingdom of Israel. So while all of the nation had rejected Christ, or the majority had rejected Christ and had rejected the disciples, in that upper room, you had that 120 who represented Israel. And I think that's what is meant, that though the church in and of itself is overthrown by its principles, the church is patriarchal. So it has not received the instruction that God intended for it to receive so that it could not experience shipwreck. But within that ship, because we are on that ship or on that ship until shipwreck, there is Paul and the other three persons who are other two who is there, who they are in the ship, they are there, and they are the true representation for that ship and captain, because the angel came to Paul, it did not go to the captain that was there. The angel comes to us and gives us instruction and tells us where we are, what is happening, where we are headed. We knew before time, so we were not taken by surprise. I think it was Manuel who had highlighted that we have knowledge that they don't have. The world doesn't have it, neither does the SDA church have it. But if you think about it on an individual level, like for me, I come from a Seventh-day Adventist family and background. When I speak to my nieces, both my nieces are very much feminists, but their parents are not. And when we speak about things within the context of current events, and I'm able to share certain things with them. While in their homes, they are obedient to their parents pretty much, but the influence that I'm able to have and extend, it goes beyond my personal sphere, my self. And I think it is the same way. If we have friends within the church, when you begin to have dialogue, like I can have conversations with my cousin and I'm saying, why is it okay to oppress a group of people that we do not agree with their lifestyles? How do we think that this is Christ-like to be oppressive? And I go from the angle of even if you believe that it is sinful and wrong, and I establish that I don't, I said, but even if you do think it is, what gives you the right to oppress and persecute? Isn't it that these people have a right to life, liberty, and happiness? And I believe it is wrong to infringe upon their God-given right. This is me talking to the Seventh-day Adventist Church because I'm speaking to an elder in the church. I have relationship with the pastor of the church. I comb his children's hair. I do medical mission ministry work with them. If they have health issues, I'm probably their go-to person that they would come to ask questions and seek guidance. And we have conversations. So it's kind of like you're leading from the back. You're not at the front, but you're having and creating influence because you develop relationship. And by so doing, you may be able to influence, and as they see the issues agitated, then they are able to say, oh, and God is able to allow the Holy Spirit to do the work that it is intended to do.
Thank you. We can all have a sphere of influence to be an example to and to share where we can as well. What are some of the causes of this failure?
Some of the causes of the failure of the sixth lamb, on the sixth kingdom.
Yeah, the sixth kingdom. Well, if you look at it as this work that was taking place all the way back in 1798, you still had those two sides fighting. So when you bring that down to our history, Lily has it compromised.
Also, sins of Babylon.
The sins of Babylon, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Listening to the some of the commentators of this failure is that the Democrats themselves, they have switched from the working party, from the people, taking care of the people, to the elitists.
Mm.
So they switched their focus from the working people, from regular good old folks, to the elitists, and people were tired of that. So politically, that's one of their failures.
Or you say
thinking that. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to get clarity. Are you talking about like the Democrat side or the Republican side, or both as a whole?
No, the Democrats, because Democrats were like like the New Deal, right? If you look at the New Deal from the Franklin era, it was all about the people.
Yes.
Right, and then as the years went along, I guess they got influenced by the right, and then the Democrats, became tired of, or they didn't think they were making enough money, the economic, whatever the reason was, they started catering to the elitists and no longer the people, and that was their downfall. So they didn't protect the people. They sided with the elitists.
That's a good one. Alyssa, you were going to say something? I think it was Alyssa.
Yeah. So the failure of the sixth kingdom, they failed to uphold the separation of church and state. to maintain the the separation.
Okay. I was looking for compromise specifically as well because the presentations that Elder Tess did on that when she talked about Biden, he was notorious for reaching across the aisle and making deals. And then when you go back to the Millerite history in 1850, what did they do in that bill? That one was a compromise as well, right? Lana has her hand up.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the compromise was so, I think after watching a number of, listening to a number of people's, opinions, is compromise is so profound is that the profundity is this idea of the Democrats was that that they can negotiate with the Republicans and win both sides, kind of, to try and win the Republicans. So the opinion was that you should have stayed strong in the what's right to do, regardless of whether it's going to cost you election results. And just by being genuine, you would have had a success, but there was no success because they kept trying to like you said, reach across the aisle. But the Republicans' idea was not, they don't care, they don't want to reach across the aisle. They just want to, they are uncompromised, they are non-compromising party, which is placed in their hand. And this is what Democrats need to have, stick to, be honest and do the right thing. Like, for example, when Garland was appointed, right? It took 2 years after the Biden's administration to start investigations on Trump, right? And it all ended up with Jack Smith being, coming to this point where it's already, there's no point. Trump is already here. He's already in power. They are legit. It's already illegitimate, this investigation, right? Had this been done earlier, right away when Biden came into power, there would be 100% success that there would be criminal indictments on Trump. And this did not happen because of the compromise, exactly compromise on so many levels. Like, it's not just simply it's this idea of Democrats to try and play on, to cater to both sides, thinking that they can win over somebody.
What is the word, going back to that quote that we read, what does the word craftiness mean? If anybody wants to look it up and throw it in the chat.
Could it be deception?
Maybe if somebody wants to pull up a couple of different definitions, different definitions to look at, but they conquer by craftiness is what it said, and that was back in the history of who was it? Maybe it was you, Kathy, that said something about that how they got the Jews involved, because the Jews were in a civil war, if I remember right. Is that the comment? I think that was you, Kathy. Clever. Being skilled in deception or cunning or behaving in clever but dishonest way. You might describe someone as crafty if they get their way by being sly or manipulative.
Sounds covert. Go ahead, Fenton. Sounds covert.
Yeah. So so what I was going to say is similar to that, is that I think, well, and this is just my opinion, it was an election. I don't think it was a fair election. I think when, we keep saying it's fair, it's, when, when you use craftiness to win over an election, I guess your Constitution allows the freedom of speech to do that, but to say it was a fair election, I'm not sure if that's, again, it's my opinion, if that's correct.
Elder Terry laid out a line, and maybe some of you could help with that. When you get to the craftiness, she brings in Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller, and Jeff Sessions. What were they working to do?
Urge the Republican Party.
Purge the Republican Party. So when it comes to, okay, so purge the Republican Party, we'll put that first here. Okay, so purging the Republican Party and going back to craftiness, or in bringing that in with democracy and the election and the comments made about cheating. Elder Terry makes the point that January 6th, I don't know, we'll start here and see where we go if I get this done in proportion. But January 6th, 2021, they tried by illegal means, correct?
Yes, that's a good point.
So they try by illegal means, and what happens?
They
It
fail.
doesn't work. It doesn't work.
So it fails, right?
Democracy held.
Yeah.
Okay. So she gives quite a bit of background on Stephen Miller in particular in the work. You'd have to watch if you haven't already, or watch again, or however. I know I need to watch them several times. But the work that Stephen Miller did in this history to keep Trump front and center and immigration front and center. Because when you begin back here, this was to purge the moderates out. And they need to, if anybody remembers in the history of 2020, where Elder Tess talked about George Floyd, that was the increase of knowledge in that history. And what else was, and I want to thank all of you for the quotes you sent me today. We're going to read those now. So to purge the moderates out, but they need to silence, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but they want to remake the Republican Party. So they begin by purging the moderates, but they need to remove all, and there's a particular word that I'm looking for that Elder Tess brought out, and from the Spirit of Prophecy as well. What did they need to get rid of, or stop, or silence? Dissent. Thank you. Dissent. So back in 2020, they were stopping the dissent that was happening. This was I don't want to write increase in knowledge and confuse us in there, but this was 2020. So it was also, because I had it backwards last night, for those that were here last night, I was remembering the death decree in our discussion, but I was picturing it in my head as still being I told you my head is scrambled. It's all in there, but I sometimes have trouble accessing it. So, but the death decree was put at the increase of knowledge. And we saw that with the death of George Floyd, and then also John Lewis, Chadwick Boseman, I hope I say these all right, RBG, and then Helen Reddy. And it got rid of the, there's another word, dissent.
Conscience.
Conscience. Is that the one she used?
Well, that was for
the voice of
death.
conscience. I sent that link to you last night, right?
Who, to me?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe it was Christine. The voice of dissent. Maybe it was Christine.
Yeah, I didn't get that one.
Yeah, hang on one second.
Voice of dissent was RBG.
Yeah.
Voice of conscience was John Lewis.
Right there.
John Lewis.
So the quote is at the top if somebody wants to read it.
When the protection of human laws shall be withdrawn from those who honor the law of God, there will be in different lands a simultaneous movement for their destruction. As the time appointed and the decree draws near, the people will conspire to root out the hated sect. It will be determined to strike in one night a decisive blow, which shall utterly silence the voice of dissent and reproof.
Thank you. So she marked the voice of dissent and reproof. That was the word I was looking for. Dissent and reproof as being removed back here. Okay, so what the Republican Party, or what the Republican Party is today, what they sought out to do was to remove, not just purge the moderates, but then get everybody on board and get rid of any dissent or any reproof. And so they continue through this process. And so here they fail, democracy holds, and their illegal action didn't work. So now how do they have to work?
Within the system.
Within the system of democracy. So while I know there's questions about cheating, how, if you want to call it cheating, how did they go about, as Kathy said, using the system? What does that mean?
Well, we heard of voter suppression.
Voter suppression?
We heard of purging. We heard of gerrymandering.
And they use the system to actually, the legal system, they use the system to actually accomplish their goals and get elected in. Correct?
And they use the system to do all the things that were just named. Voter suppression was done through a legal process. Gerrymandering was done through a legal process. Purging was done. All of that which was listed was through the system. They worked within the system to overthrow the system. It was not done outside of it.
Each state legislative body passed those laws in all those states.
Yeah.
And therefore they use the system to work their craftiness.
That's right.
Was somebody else going to say something? Okay, so you get to this history here, and now we have what? I'm trying to ask the question without giving too much of the answer, but I don't know how to ask it. What gets set up here?
The image.
The image. Actually, I already had it there, so good. So you got the image set up. When was the image set up, and who wants to explain that?
Well, I don't know if I can explain it, but I think, was it Curtis's study? The image was set up in July, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the image was set up in July and the mark in November.
And so, go ahead.
And Elder Terry, so now these are, it's I don't know the rules of this parable methodology enough. But I think Elder Terry said we're not so concerned about the dates, whether it's July or whether it's November. So I'm not sure if she made specific when the image was set up.
Elder Terry is pretty adamant that is July 18th. That has not shifted.
I'm sorry?
She's adamant that it is July 18th. She has not supplied her position. So when she's saying the date doesn't matter, it was in
Was that the
context.
image or was that the mark?
It places both the image and the mark at the same place because the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, they are the same thing.
Okay, so July 18th, according to Elder Terry, it's both the image and the mark.
Mhm.
Okay.
I didn't think so. I thought she was putting the mark, or maybe, okay, so maybe there's a difference, the mark of the beast test versus the mark of the beast.
That's right, mark of the beast test.
If we have time, we're
That's
going
at
to try to
the last
switch to the
trial.
mark of the beast. If we have time, we're going to try to switch to the mark of the beast. What is the image?
Manosphere.
Manosphere. And that's how she defined it as the manosphere. And when you go back and trace through this history, and why does she label it manosphere? Or what? I don't know if that's the right way to say that. What evidence did we see with our eyes?
You mean all the big macho men at the RNC, like Hulk Hogan?
Yes.
Didn't she say Memorial of Dominion was the manosphere? Dominion.
So Dominion, though, I was thinking she was saying that that was equality. If we look at the, like, so on the manosphere side, it's inequality. It's dominion needs to be understood as equality from a scripture standpoint.
Okay.
I don't think I don't remember Terry saying that because she did a compare and contrast.
Correct. And dominion was on the side of the Sabbath law, not on the Sunday law.
Well, what the sign of sanctification is equality. And I don't remember if she put the word in there. I didn't have it in my notes. She went back to say that in the compare and contrast on the Sunday law side, the sign, it would be the manosphere. They want to keep the order of things that came in when God gave dominion to humanity and being equality, and with sin coming in, if there's somebody who can explain this better off the top of their head, Kathy might be able to. That dominion was taken away, and now you have man over woman is one of them. Go ahead, Christine.
Right. I was just going to say exactly what you just said, that there's a difference between dominion for both male and female, or both of them, over the earth and the animals and taking care of them, stewardship, and dominion over a woman or women. So so it went from them both being a team with dominion over the earth to one of them being dominion over the other. Big difference.
Yeah.
I agree.
One was equality, that they were made to have dominion. And then when you go to the other side, that dominion that was here, it was equality, that dominion was then taken away. So
the original, sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
The original dominion is blessing. The loss of dominion is the curse.
Yes, but it went from dominion from over the earth to one being over dominion over the other.
Yes, equality and equality. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to share a silly fact. The Seven Mountains people can call themselves dominionist.
Yeah. Kathy probably knows that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that.
Dominion.
So just to add what Christine said, so men lost dominion over their environment, the earth, and so they went into the dominion over woman.
Yes.
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 Yes. And that's what this seeks to has fought to preserve. And if you look at the bigger picture, that's what was they fought they have been fighting throughout this to preserve and squash the human rights out and let the manosphere run things. And I know that it was not J.D. Vance. Who was it that was talking about the needed more machoism? It was somebody I was kind of surprised to hear it from. Needed to bring in more bring in the machoism back into government and into society.
Zuckerberg?
Yes,
Is it Zuckerberg?
yes, he's the one. Yeah, yes. Then I was like, wow, okay. So when you read his executive orders, that Lana went through a good portion of them, you look at when it comes to fighting for human rights, the United States should have been the champion. And as a glorious land, prophetically should have been the champion, has failed in that job. So there's more of this line to get from Elder Terry's studies. Let's go finish. We just have a little bit of time left and touch on the Mark of the Beast issue then. Because this was another question, and I don't know that we definitely won't get through it like we did last night. When it comes to the Mark of the Beast, when Phil already gave us the repeating pattern, Boston, Concord, Exeter test. So you're going to also have Boston, Concord, Exeter, and a test. So I want to at least get to the quotes that, for those that were with us last night, the quotes that Olivine sent me. So you have the period of agitation that points to the National Sunday Law. Therefore, if this is the National Sunday Law, this is the worldwide Sunday Law, what does the world need to see?
Inequality.
What did they have back here to prepare for the National Sunday Law?
Agitation.
Say that again.
Agitation.
Agitation. So what does the world need?
To be agitated.
Agitation.
So they need an agitation. So there would be an agitation here as well for the world. So let's go just, this is kind of scrambled because I know we're rushed for time now. When you look at the Mark of the Beast, the great test that is going to determine our eternal destiny, we understand it. I'll go through how I understand it now and see how we go about that. If you use the repeating pattern, what happens at Sunday Law?
You have an unsealing of a message.
Okay, so you have a message that arrives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what?
Gets developed.
What are the steps? Increase of knowledge.
Increase of knowledge.
Yeah.
And then
Formalization.
formalization, and then you're going to be tested. So you go through, there are many quotes to go through, but if you read through the chapter.
Elaine, I think test comes at the formalization, right?
Say that
And
again.
we have another. The
there.
test will come at the formalization.
But the test
Yeah,
is
that's
at
where
the
I'm getting
close
to.
of
Thank you, Gloria.
probation.
Yes, Gloria, that's where I'm getting to. So because you have a message that arrives, and if you go to the great controversy, the final warning, and follow through the steps, what are the steps that she gives us in there? You have a message that arrives, and it's a message of warning us about what?
Close to probation? Are we talking about
Getting
for
the
our
mark of the beast.
Who said that?
right?
Mark of the
David.
You have a Mark of the
Right.
Beast test that's coming. So if it's a Mark of the Beast that's coming, you have an arrival of a message that this message is going to be pertaining to the Mark of the Beast, as Elder Terry did put Mark of the Beast equals Sunday Law, because you get a message on the Mark of the Beast that arrives here. And if you follow the repeating pattern, then what's the increase of knowledge going to be on?
Mark of the Beast.
It have to be the Mark of the Beast. And then what would the formalization be on?
The endpoint.
And then, so what's the test?
Mark of the beast. It's the same.
Mark of the beast. So you've got this increase of knowledge and a formalization and a test. So while this is where the mark of the beast message arrives, if you remember right from Elder Tessa's studies on reform lines, when the message arrives in 1999, did we understand what the message was?
No.
And there was an increase of knowledge, then a formalization, and then a test. So we didn't understand, but looking in this movement, within this movement anyways, with the prophetic view, we are now, I don't know if we want to say catching up. I don't know that I'm totally caught up, but we're able to understand this going forward, and we're going to have this increase of knowledge and this formalization that it becomes more and more clear. So as she laid out on this line, showing this 10-year period, and this 10-year period had a Sunday law, 2019? Yeah, Sunday law for on the line of the Levites. 2021 was Sunday law. You have the RNC 2024 Sunday law. And we would actually be able to put one more if we extended that out now. And that would be this one, correct?
Yes.
So on this line, and what Elder Terry's saying is that this is what Sunday law looks like. And the point of her study was to show that there's a mark of the beast arrival message, but the test is actually here, and you don't get the mark of the beast until here, which close of probation is Daniel 12:1, right? Okay, so this is where I was struggling with, and we talked about it last night. We're going to read a couple of quotes, or have a couple of people read quotes here. Go ahead, Olivine, I think you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
I was just agreeing with you, saying yes to what you were saying.
Okay.
Or only what you mean.
Let me get our quotes up here and we'll... Okay. So, and again, I thank you, Olivine, because I know I've read these many, many times, but I had forgotten about them. So if somebody wants to read this first quote, and this is Christian Experience and Teachings 93.2, if somebody wants to read the first quote here.
I'll read it. I saw that God had children who do not see and keep the Sabbath. They have not rejected the light upon it, and at the commencement of the time of trouble, we were filled with the Holy Ghost as we went forth and proclaimed the Sabbath more fully.
What would the Sabbath be if you were to?
Equality?
Yes, the memorial of creation, equality, yes.
This enraged the churches and nominal Adventists as they could not refute the Sabbath truth. And at this time, God's chosen all saw clearly that we had the truth, and they came out and endured the persecution with us. I saw the sword, famine, pestilence, and great confusion in the land. The wicked thought that we had brought the judgments upon them, and they rose up and took counsel to rid the earth of us, thinking that then the evil would be stayed. So
if you were to place that on the line in that third sentence, what does that tell us? Where is she on the line talking about this?
At the mark of the beast.
You mean like 1861, 1863? No, 1861, time of trouble.
After the close of probation.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the line, not in which history, but looking at the line. So the commencement of the time of trouble. What does commencement mean?
Where it starts.
Where it starts, right? And she's talking about Jacob's time of trouble. So there would have to be a message that arrives, right? Okay, so you have the commencement of the time of trouble. There's this we in there. and this enraged the churches. Who would you put in the place of the churches and the non? That's something to be picked apart. But they can't refute equality.
Society. Good society.
Society.
Culture, the culture.
The culture.
Yes. So it's society with their culture.
Yeah. So they could not refute this equality truth. And at this time, God's chosen all saw clearly that so there's God's chosen, and then there's we that had the truth. So this is in the close of probation dispensation, what is it saying to us?
That the chosen will realize or recognize that we have the truth. Or
So we have the same steps.
So at Daniel 12:1. So at Daniel 12:1.
The message arrived.
Say that again.
At close of probation, on that marker, the message arrives, and then we have an increase of knowledge of that message, and then we'll have to have a formalization of that close of probation message. That's the way I see it. And then the test.
So
at the second.
Yes. So reading that passage, are there people after the close of probation that are still yet to be saved?
Yes. I think so.
You're referring to the close of probation marker, waymark, right?
Yes, the waymark itself.
Yes. So yes, the answer is yes.
Because I tell you, that threw me. I had to really.
Can you put?
Wait, that went over my head. I'm sorry, Victoria. I had to get that in. That went over my head, Elaine.
Okay. Can we take down the screen, share screen, and
to the board?
To the board. Thank you.
Sorry. I was going to read another quote, but
it was clear.
Go ahead.
It was me. It's just easier for me to see your board as you're talking. And
yeah, I kind of messed up. Forgot you didn't see it.
So Elaine, you're just doing a repeating pattern of the Sunday law dispensation and separating the waymark from the event. Correct.
So what Elder Terry was showing, and actually, I don't think she meant to. I don't know if she meant to show that, but the question comes up in the class, and I totally missed that question when it came up. And so I was re-listening to that whole discussion, because what people are starting to realize based on what she's teaching is that if this is the worldwide, which I think some of us knew that or maybe forgot it. I know I forgot it, but I'd seen it. It was always taught that way. You have the national Sunday law, and then you have the worldwide Sunday law. And so this test being the best that I understand it for America, and then you have God's chosen, as says in that comment or in that quote, God's chosen still have not received the mark of the beast or the seal of God.
And this is global.
Huh? And it's global.
And this is global.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm still not understanding that. I'm sorry. This one got me.
Say that again.
Troy, do you see point and period?
I do, but maybe if Elaine go over it again, maybe, because that went over my head.
With us last night. Were you?
No, last night I wasn't participating because I was distracted.
Okay. I was thinking you were there. So when you take this history here and understand that what she's brought back into the study, which was I think long forgotten by I think a lot of us probably had already learned it, but forgotten it as well. Maybe some had never learned it, but there's always been that national Sunday law and then a global or worldwide Sunday law. And so if you take that, this Sunday law history that we're in now, you have an agitation, you have an arrival of a message, and that message is going to be about the mark of the beast. I would think this would be the same message. Is somebody trying to say something? Is somebody trying to say something?
Somebody maybe is not muted. I do see the both the national and the worldwide. Yeah, I see those, but where you touch on let me see if I can remember what you said. That the agitation between the Sunday law and the close of probation is the same after the close of probation to the second advent. Am I correct?
Yes, there is an agitation then here in this history that is for the world.
Right.
So this agitation, as we saw an agitation in the United States, this agitation takes place and is for global, for the world. So when you come to Daniel 12, go ahead.
I was about to ask, so that COP where Daniel 12:1, I'm still not seeing.
I think we have to wait on that one, don't you think, Elaine? The message that arrives in COP, because when we get near to a waymark, then more light comes in. But I think we have to wait.
We're going to read the last quote, and then
I
we'll.
think what Elaine is trying to establish is the pattern that we need to see. As Kathy had asked Troy, repeating pattern. So it's not that Elaine is explaining or giving a description of the events of the close of probation. She's giving an explanation of the pattern. As we have seen the pattern for the Sunday law, it arises, it is developed, then there is a test. Likewise with the close of probation. It arrives, it develops, then there is a test. For the United States, for the world, it's a repeating pattern. It's the very same pattern. So it has nothing to do with events. It has to do with understanding the repeating pattern.
We agree with the pattern, but the message that arrives at the close of probation, we're just talking about the message, not the repeating pattern. Yeah.
No, Elaine wasn't speaking about the message, and Troy didn't ask about the message. Troy was saying he was confused about what Elaine was explaining, which was the pattern.
Yes, the pattern. And Troy, I think, gets it. Boston, Concord, Exeter. Somebody want to read this last quote? Olivine, would you like to read the last one? Olivine? Do we have somebody read that last quote?
I will. Sorry, I was reading. I didn't realize I was muted.
Yeah, okay.
And as God spoke, the day and the hour of Jesus' coming, and delivered the everlasting covenant to his people, he spoke one sentence and then paused. While the words were rolling through the earth, the Israel of God stood with their eyes fixed upward, listening to the words as they came from the mouth of Jehovah and rolled through the earth like peals of loudest thunder. It was awfully solemn, and at the end of every sentence, the saints shouted, "Glory, hallelujah." Their countenances were lighted up with the glory of God, and they shone with the glory, as did the face of Moses when he came down from Sinai.
So we are over time. I guess that gives us a lot to think about. And prayerfully, I stated at the beginning, I'm very thankful for Elder Parmender's leadership in bringing us to go back through with patience and listen to everybody's various studies, because the idea is not to I'm going to give it how I see it in my mind, not to, get on a side. We all want to be on the same side, the right side, the side of victory, the side of glory, all of that. And so to come through and reason together with these things, I I find it has been very beneficial for me because as we went through this discussion on Wednesday, I went into it initially seeing things one way, and it was through the discussion that really, really helped me come through it. So I hope that what little we've touched on here is helpful. And then Elder Terry is scheduled to come here as well as some of the others. So I look forward to that. Yes, this does just show a repeating pattern. And though it sounds like something new, I know we've probably all read those quotes before and never thought them like we do today. But I thank you for all your help and input, and we'll go ahead and close in prayer.
Thank you, Elaine. Wonderful study.
Almighty God in heaven, Lord, as we grapple with these truths and grapple as well as we walk through this history in real time, we thank you for your mercy and your guidance and your direction. That you have patience in our long suffering, and that it is not your desire that any should be lost. So as we examine the various studies, I pray that all it would do is that the light that shines would rise and dispel every darkness, every error, every mistake. And that with humble hearts, where we're called to pivot, that we pivot with you and that we stay on this journey through victory. We thank you for the blessing of the Sabbath, the time together to fellowship, to praise, to worship, and study these things together. And we ask you as we continue out the rest of the Sabbath that we could meditate upon these things and you would draw us to various places in our studies that we might all come into correct understanding and perfect unity. And that as we enter into a new week, Lord, that we would go through and despite the turmoil all around us, help us to see the joy in the second advent, as it'll be a heartbreaking journey along this way, but help us to have sight always of the second advent, that our hearts might be filled with peace and joy, and may our character demonstrate that within our sphere of influence, that others might be drawn to you. We thank you and we praise you and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.